What's up, everyone? Roshi is here. Massive balance changes coming in. Looks like Direwolf's going to have a Ask the Devs channel in the Direwolf Gaming Discord, and we'll be able to ask them questions, which will be quite interesting. But let's just dive into the changes. I know that's what you're here for. Voprex's Choice now being fast. That actually makes this a very interesting card. Being able to sacrifice a unit basically means you can hold this up on your opponent's turn, pop whatever they play, and or grab a dragon or weapon if they don't play anything. Seems pretty solid. Definitely makes that a lot more viable. Eileen's Choice now being 2 cost is solid. This means it can go into even-handed golem decks, and maybe it'll see more play just being able to be a cheaper card that can be used more often. So that's kind of cool. Jadehorn now corrupted 5, was corrupted 6. I guess that just makes it cheaper to activate on the back half, but I still don't really see this card seeing much more play. Maybe this opens up design space in the future. Slay is now fast, pretty straightforward, seems cool. Yeti Furflinger got a sight buff. It's easier to cast now in multi-faction decks, and paying 5 to ultimate, I guess this makes it somewhat viable. This card's always been interesting because it's a 3 cost 3/4, which is very excellent stats for a card to have. I'm not sure that Yetis actually wants this in its current form of Yetis, but maybe there's a mid-range Yetis deck we've all been sleeping on out there that wants this, and that could make this card good. Or maybe just like a transform deck or something, or Nightfall or whatever. Could be cool. Edict of Grodov is back down to 3 cost again. I know there was a period of time where everyone was just main decking Edict of Grodov. Like, there was a meta where that was just what was happening. Like, literal just like 4 main deck Edicts was happening. I forget if that was Expedition or not, but it was a pretty silly time to be alive. And maybe we'll return there. That was hilarious. Vodacon's Staff now gives Endurance. Definitely a huge buff for this card, since Permafrost is such good removal. Surso's Choice getting a buff down to 3 cost is pretty neat. Being able to get Aegis kind of for 3 power and gain a bunch of life can be useful, and the deal 2 damage is pretty nice as well. Kahanya is now a 2/5, pretty straightforward here. Brawn is a 6/8, like nothing really going on. Interestingly, Gentle Grazer is now play a 3 cost card from your deck. That certainly makes this card better. I'm not sure though that like this is as good as what the old Gentle Grazer was, because you could just design your deck to have only 2 drops in it as your like 2 or less cards, and then you're always guaranteed a 2-drop card. But if you're playing Throne and try and make your deck only have 3 drops in it, you're just gonna lose. This does make the card better though, but I'm not sure how much better. Predatory Connoisseur is now a 6/6. It sounds good to me. Still probably won't see very much play, but I guess it activates both half of Sling now if you're playing 3-faction Sling. Tlier's Choice is now 4 cost and fast. So we can make Explorers at instant speed, and we can rally at instant speed. That's cool. I like that. Vicious Highwayman's back to 4 cost. Maybe that'll make Stone Scar a little more viable. I guess that's fine. It's been a while since Stone Scar's been like truly viable, but man, this card was annoying when Stone Scar was viable, so I don't really mind it being gone, but hey, I'm sure some people did. Nerf-wise, Blazing Salvo now costs 2. This is huge. Aggro decks are able to dump their hands so quickly, and part of that was just Blazing Salvo, getting rid of like extra power they'd have. Houndmaster only makes 4 ones now. Honestly, I thought it was a little ridiculous that Houndmaster made 4 4s. Just for a 2-drop, that's a lot of pressure and like power and toughness getting put on the board. And now, like, an even-handed golem or something is all you need to, like, deal with the 4-1. I don't know if you guys were aware, but I was literally playing Merry Mandrakes on the ladder, and to combat Houndmasters and stuff, just because they were everywhere, I was main decking 4 Airmont's designs in my deck that had over 22 drops in it. So even though I was playing over 22 drops, I just expected my opponent to deal with everything I played and then slam Houndmaster and just have this huge board, and then I'd just play Airmont's designs and win the game. So that's what I literally had to do. Whereas now, maybe you'll be able to live a little longer, like your little units can trade off with the 4-1, and you're not just dead, which is cool. Prowling Amarunk only gaining 1 when you attack is huge. This card got out of hand so fast. Like, let's say you're not able to deal with it the first turn it comes down, whether because it has Aegis or whatever. It comes down as a 4-2, and then next turn they attack again, and it's a 6-2. And then, like, if it's got quick draw and you don't have any removal, you're just stuck. And if it has Aegis and you only have 1 removal spell, you're still stuck. So then you'd play something, and then they just clear it out of the way and hit you for 8, and then 10, and then you're probably dead at that point. Rhyme Conclave being a 3-1 is nice. Horukir has been so good for so long. Plus this Dovid nerf, like between these two, I think it's nice. I don't like that Rhyme Conclave Smuggler gets Aegis. That's always annoyed me, but whatever. Transpose no longer gives Aegis. I think that's pretty cool. What I don't like is if it's not going to give Aegis, then why is it 2 cost? Right? Like, yeah. Not sure I'm really feeling this one. I guess like 1 cost market access was pretty powerful, but you know, now that it doesn't have Aegis, like, all this card does is pop your opponent's Aegis, I guess, for 2. This is a pretty huge nerf. If you guys know the kind of decks I used to play a year ago, this nerf definitely puts the nail in the coffin of my worldpyre lists that would count on Transpose to give myself Aegis, grab worldpyre out of the market, and do it that way. I'm pretty sure that style of deck is just well and truly dead with this nerf, unfortunately. So rest in peace, worldpyre. But no, I mean, this is probably healthy, honestly. It was very annoying whenever you try and do something that targets your opponent's face or whatever, and they just have 30 ways to gain Aegis and ways to do it at instant speed. And just half of your deck would just be negated because you happen to be playing against an opponent that had like 4 Transpose and 4 of the Aegis land, and then they were playing Eileen's Favor. I'm not talking about any deck in particular, Sling, but or you know, any sort of like garden control list or something like that, and they just have a billion ways to gain Aegis, and it was annoying. So that being gone is probably a blessing. Amar got nerfed to 3. I find this interesting because there's not really a competitive Amar deck right now. I wonder if this is just future-proof, or maybe it's because all of the even-handed Golem decks that use Amar, and they're just like, you know what, let's just be done with this. None of those decks are actually fun to play against. Honestly, I'm okay with this. To be honest, even though these decks like could win, and I think they were actually quite good, they were just so frustrating to play with and against. If you've seen the one deck that like tries to use warp cards and Amar and you just flip through your whole deck, like that is not fun for the player doing it, and it is not fun for the opponent either. Like you're just sitting there and flip through your whole deck until you win. And amusingly, when they nerfed Grenahen, they actually made like the nerf on Grenahen actually made this deck more consistent, but it also made it take way longer to combo off because you would draw through your whole deck before you would do anything. So Grenahen would actually mean like just 3 less times you have to click a card off the top of your deck, and combine that by like 4 Grenahens, and that's like 12 clicks you've saved throughout the game. So I think it's okay that this card's gone, but As a 3-drop, it's basically useless, and I don't expect it to see much play. They really need to buff its stats if they want this card to like have any play at all. As a 3-drop, I expect this card to have like 4 toughness, not 1, or like, you know, 3 toughness or something. Not a 2-1. You know, I don't want to spend 3 for a 2-1. Definitely not. I barely want to spend 2 for a 2-1, and yeah. So, Sling of the Chi is now 4 cost. This is fantastic news. The days of your opponent going turn 1, hold up, transpose, like, then turn 2 into Eileen's favor. Now they've got Aegis. Turn 3, slam Sling. Turn 4, kill your guy, are gone. And we can all just be thankful for that. Sling is still going to be a totally viable card, just with all of the other crap it does. But it's going to happen a turn later. It's going to be slower, and life's going to be good. Interestingly, we can now transpose for Sling of the Chi. Also, interestingly, transpose just got nerfed hard. So take that with a grain of salt. I imagine you'd probably just use regular merchants now as they curve straight into Sling. Shrine to Carve It is a 4-drop now. I'm kind of sad. There haven't really been that many good Shrine decks recently. So this is just going to make them even harder to play. Although, to be fair, Shrine is a very unfun deck to play against sometimes, especially for a newer player. Probably along with Sling as well. But, you know, it's a shame to see some of these iconic relics like fall to like 4 cost. On the bright side, though, like they're still viable. Like in the ultra late game, or if you've drawn a ton of cards, like you can still do Sling and you can still do Shrine. It's just not going to be as consistent. And it's not going to be as fast. Garden of Omens. Now your spells can't be negated or blocked by Aegis. And okay, not a lot of people are playing negates, and there's definitely way less people playing Aegis now. One of the interesting things about this, though, is this means that your Ice Bolt can go through Bubble Shield. So, Garden of Omens is now good against Kira, whereas before, you know, they'd just Bubble Shield it and get a power and laugh at you. I actually find this a very interesting side grade. And at the same time, like, Garden of Omens used to be super degenerate with some of the things you could do. Like, I know in my worldpyre decks in the past, I would have like a billion ways to plunder, and just you'd be playing like 1-cost treasures or 0-cost transpose, 0-cost defiance, and like just a lot of feels bad cards that would protect your garden and blow your opponent out when you didn't even have any power. So that's kind of gone, which is nice. You can still kind of do it if you complete the agenda, but you have to get there first, which will be hard. I like this change. It definitely, I think, makes this card more viable against certain decks, and against some of them, should be interesting. Davia got buffed to even, so that's cool. We can now play Davia in even-handed decks, and you spend 8 power and you'll get a 5/5 and a spell. Her power and toughness got nerfed a little bit, but as far as I can tell, she's still going to have Aegis, she's still going to have Voidbound, and she's still going to be able to pay 4 to stun. I honestly think this is a buff, especially in Throne. Maybe in Expedition it's not a buff, but the difference between 7 and 8 really isn't that crazy. It's definitely not non-existent. Like, it's way easier to get to 7, but I still think Davia is going to see a ton of play, and now we get to experiment with her in even-handed Golem decks, which is funny. Just throwing this out there, but 8 of the Horu is an even card. Lots of nice even board wipes, like Fall to Ruin. They're all even cards. Speaking of even cards, not to continue this trend, D'Angelo's Might is now an even card. Being a 6-drop certainly makes this card a little more balanced. I feel like Expedition had fallen to this kind of D'Angelo's Might meta where everyone was just like trying to play the best possible 4-drop and then immediately slam a D'Angelo's Might afterwards or something on 5. And then just draw a billion cards and have a ton of options for the rest of the game. And all you were trying to do was play your exploits so you could exploit their D'Angelo's Might or like deal with their unit before they did this. And it was just this kind of sub-meta that was going on in Expedition where whoever did it first just kind of won the game. Because then you draw a bunch of exploits and you just pick apart whatever your opponent was doing and you just win. So slowing that down is very, very much appreciated. That little sub-meta was fun while it was still developing and people were figuring it out. But it get to the point where everyone was just ramming like the highest statted 4-drop that they could play. I think people were even playing like Siege Breakers and stuff like that. And, you know, you'd see like all of Onerous Roa or Sandstorm Titan or the 5/5 Flyer, stuff like that. We're just getting rammed in decks so that turn 5 you could play D'Angelo's Might, refill your hand, and blow out your opponent. So, interesting in that regard. Kroll now makes exhausted units. I guess the Shrine decks aren't happy about this, but seems fine. A very fair way of changing this card that was been so strong for so long. Talir only gives single faction units Destiny instead of just time units. This definitely changes some of the flexibility of the card. But honestly, a lot of the decks I've been playing with Talir in it were mostly monotime anyway. So I don't see this as being too much of an issue, but it will definitely hurt some of our flexibility in deck building. It also shuts down some of the weirder combos. I think basically at this point, the only version of the combo that still exists is my like basically Xenon mid-range deck, or I know Spiffy has a version where they're using like Vara's Authority and stuff from that team. And just like now you're basically just playing, you're forced into like the mono time, probably splashing Shadow just for like all of the good reanimation cards. And you're not able to do the ridiculous Vodacon Grimva? I don't know. You're not able to do any of the ridiculous combos. You can't do the ones where you're like sacking your units to get power and you're playing like all of the merchants. So you can use your merchant to get Talir and then another merchant to like get something else that like sacks a unit and gives you power. And then you reanimate Talir, do the thing, win the game. So that version of the combo is gone. But like the mid-range version is still going to exist and it's still going to be solid. You know, maybe we don't get to play as Indol anymore and like some other interesting like Shadow Time cards, or if you for whatever reason weren't playing Time and maybe wanted to splash for like, I don't even know, Shoal Custodian or something ridiculous. You can't do that now. If you're playing a Talir combo deck, you are dedicated to the Time life, and that's just what it'll be. Altogether, I'm very pleased about these changes. I would have liked to have seen more previous cards get reverted. Some of these cards that they're reverting or like buffing hardly change things at all, or it's like such a minute change. Like Braun being a 6/8, like what does this change about this card? Like I guess it doesn't die to Ice Bolt now, but you know, or like Kahanya being a 2/5. It's just, you know, I would have liked to have seen a lot more of the older cards that have been nerfed just get reverted, and that would be sick. I don't think the Ikaria nerf was justified. I'd like to see 6-cost Ikaria come back. Stuff like that. Anything that was nerfed because of Expedition, but like now is no longer in Expedition, I think they should just blanket revert it. just let there be chaos, and like, then if it's really broken, you just nerf it again. I know that's sounds sloppy, but like, I think Throne should have good cards in it. Like, we should have lots of different strategies in Throne, and just because a strategy that came out as launched was a little too strong for Expedition does not mean that same strategy is too strong for Throne. Like, for example, the Marius Mandrake being a 0/4, that was kind of broken in Expedition because there was no way for people to deal with it. But Throne has plenty of ways to deal with a 0/4. Now, sure, all the aggro decks and like the people playing Hailstorm will be sad, but like, there's still plenty of ways to deal with the Marius Mandrake, and it's not excessively broken in Throne. Maybe I'm just biased because I like that card, but that's just an example. That card was clearly nerfed because there was a Mandrake deck flying around. Honestly, a lot of the Mandrakes were nerfed. And they could just blanket unnerf all of the Mandrakes, and that could be a viable Throne deck. But as they are with their post-Expedition nerfs, they're not doing anything. Stuff like that. Food for thought. If Direwolf is watching this, you know, I'd love to see it. I know Ilya's made a few massive, like, comprehensive posts going over, like, each nerfed card, so I'm not going to go into that here. But go on Reddit, search for Ilya, look up his posts. Very, very good reads, and kind of summarizes, or, you know, goes into much greater detail than I did here, and just goes through all of these different cards. I think it's worth reading, worth considering. That aside, I still think this is a fantastic change. I'm very happy to see Davia get knocked down a peg in Expedition. D'Angelo's might get knocked down a peg. You know, Houndmaster and Prowling. You know, it's been about time for these to go, or at least not go, but just like get nerfed a little bit, because now Expedition's a fresh format right now. We can do all kinds of cool stuff, and it'll be neat. Definitely love the transpose nerf, and the sling nerf. You know, people are just getting tired of playing against sling. I know, myself included. And even some of the people playing sling were tired of playing sling and playing against it. So, all well appreciated. Thanks for you watching, guys. This is Roshi. I'll probably be live tonight, probably around when this video is going live. So, come hang out. We'll be playing some Eternal. Not sure when these changes go into effect, but hopefully sooner rather than later. And thanks, guys. I'll catch you later.